Meet Bernie. I bought him for an absurd amount of money and then brought the little guy home. He is not looking good. His cage is like a prison. His skin is peeling away, and he has more attitude than my mother-in-law. I have to help him because I have a bigger mission in mind. Finding him a mate. Can I find Bernie love? Or was it too late? Well, it all starts here, on day 1. Right after I got Bernie, my chameleon, I had to act quickly. His eyes, nose, and mouth were covered in dry, flaky skin. The cage was too dry, causing his skin to peel off. To help him, I decided to use a humidifier. Bernie seemed as excited as a chameleon could be. The mist from the humidifier helped his dead skin come off, and he seemed to appreciate it. So I left him alone overnight. By the second day, his skin had improved, but I knew the humidifier was just a temporary fix. I had bigger plans for Bernie's well-being. However, before implementing those plans, I needed to make sure he had enough to eat. Chameleons have big appetites, so I bought him a variety of food options. Surprisingly, he refused to eat anything. No matter how I offered the food, he went on a hunger strike. Instead of eating, he would puff up and change color, almost like giving me the chameleon version of the middle finger. Chameleons, it turns out, are like living mood rings. Bernie turns green when he's happy, blue when excited, orange when mad, and sometimes he looks like he's photoshopped. Bernie, it seemed, was not a social butterfly. Despite my attempts to feed him, he remained uninterested in the food offerings. His refusal to eat made me realize that Bernie was a unique and independent character. I wondered how I could better understand and connect with my unconventional pet. Bernie's life took a turn when he met Becky. Becky, my girl chameleon, had been alone for way too long. She needed a partner, someone just like Bernie. But Bernie wasn't in the best shape for that kind of thing just yet. So I decided to help him out. First things first, Bernie needed a new place to live. I got to work setting up his tank, which was about the size of a small room. It took some time to figure out the right setup, but I eventually nailed it down. I used some special foam to lock everything in place, and it was supposed to expand overnight. By the third day, Bernie still hadn't eaten anything. He was scared of my hand, so I had to get creative. I found a feeding stick that allowed me to give him food without getting too close. I was crossing my fingers that it would work, and it did. He finally ate. It was incredible to watch him snatch his food with his lightning-fast tongue. The tip of his tongue is like a sticky trap for his prey. Bernie's a real hunting pro, and now that he was eating, I could focus on making his new home even better. You see, Becky needed Bernie, but Bernie needed some help before he could be the partner Becky wanted. It took some effort, but slowly, Bernie was getting back on track. He had this amazing skill with his tongue that made him a top-notch hunter. And now that he was eating, I could keep working on making his home perfect for when Becky and Bernie finally met. The foam dried and the wood stayed in place, like it was stuck with super glue. Now, the next step was carving. I spent so much time on it, like watching a whole bunch of movies back to back, but eventually, I finished. Then came the part where I had to cover up the foam that looked kind of ugly. I spread thick silicone and dirt on the background to make it look more natural. Everything was going okay, but there was one big problem. Becky. She was getting impatient and giving Bernie the eye, ready to start a family. But Bernie wasn't ready, so I kept working on his setup. After 10 days, Bernie did something new. He ate from my hand for the first time. He stopped being grumpy and hissy. Things were getting better. The tank was nearly done. I cleaned up the background, brought it inside, added the bedding, planted some stuff, set up the lighting, and voila, it was done. I was so sure that nothing bad could happen. But then, disaster struck. There was mold growing everywhere. Mold is really dangerous for chameleons, and I had to do something quick. So, I decided to bring in some little creatures to clean up the mess in Bernie's house. These critters were like tiny maids. But instead of dusting and vacuuming, they were on a mission to munch away the mold. I had high hopes that they would work wonders, just like I had hoped therapy would magically fix my marriage problems. It turned out to be a good move. After waiting patiently for 21 days, the mold was completely gone, just like my wife, vanished from the scene. With the place all spick and span, it was finally time to move Bernie into his new digs. Instead of scooping him up like usual, I wanted to try something different. I hoped he'd come to me willingly. After all, we'd built up some trust. Taking care of him had been a bit of a challenge, but moments like these made it all worthwhile. Bernie, in all his chameleon glory, was experiencing a real plant for the first time. Imagine being stuck in a wire cage your whole life. That was Bernie's story until now. And as luck would have it, the tank even had a touch of red, like the storm of troubles was clearing, making way for a brighter future. On day 30, and it was time for Bernie and Becky to try their paws at parenthood. It was a risky business, considering Bernie was about 4 times Becky's size, and things could get dicey. But what if Bernie was the nervous one? What if he wasn't ready for this step? Well, there's only one way to find out, right? After a little pep talk, Bernie was geared up for the occasion. I introduced Becky to a cozy branch, and soon enough, the two lovebirds locked eyes. Bernie, being the gentleman, or chameleon, wasted no time in putting on a colorful show to impress her. However, Becky wasn't making things easy. She played the classic game of hard to get. So, Bernie went up to Becky, but she turned away. She climbed up high into the leaves, and Bernie followed her. They ended up face to face. Bernie knew this was his only chance, so he tried to get closer to her. But then, something unexpected happened. Becky got really angry and started to attack. It seemed like my plan to help Bernie find a girlfriend wasn't going to work. But then I realized something important. Even though Bernie and Becky didn't become friends, Bernie and I did. Bernie used to be scared and lonely, but now he's like my closest buddy. He hangs out with me, eats from my hand, and always wants some pets. It's amazing to see how much we've both changed and grown closer together. We've been on quite a journey. Thanks for being a part of it. I'll be back with more adventures soon. And hey, if you enjoyed this, do subscribe to my channel for more chameleon adventures and heartwarming stories. See you in the next video.